everybody. Welcome to the October 6th Eugene Water and Electric, October 7th, excuse me, Eugene Water and Electric Board meeting. Call this meeting to order. My name is John Borowski. I'm the president this year. Start off with agenda topic 1, which is agenda check. Does anybody have any additions or subtractions or adjustments to the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 2, which is items from board members and general manager. We'll just go around the room. We'll start with Tim.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to mention this past month has been a month of resiliency with the staff of going to Blue River, the water team, and seeing the progress that was up there and also still the amount of work that needs to be done. And then also attending the Kennedy Middle School opening for the emergency water. God, there's a word I'm missing. Oh no. But it was really great it's hard to have those conversations about resiliency and emergencies, but so much of our community was there and ready to have that chat and be prepared for it. So well and truly, I want to just thank the staff for allowing me to tag along for those events and see the great work that they're doing.
Great, thank you. Mindy?
I went upriver for the joint EWEB Lane Electric meeting, and there were about, I think, around 25 to 30 people. I can't remember what it said in the report there. And it was just a presentation by both utilities about the possibility of Lane Electric taking over that service territory. And I thought it was a good presentation. There were lots of good questions, and I'm sure there's more to come soon.
And speaking to that, I did notice last night I was going through YouTube, and that did make it onto YouTube. The slide presentations on there and the audio. So if anybody else wants to look at it, I started into it, and then it was like, Mindy did a great job up there. Sonia.
I just wanted to also thank staff. Wow, that's much louder than I expected it would be. I wanted to thank staff as well for the Kennedy well opening. It was really great to see community members out there, and lovely having Tim speak and represent EWEB. So thanks.
Don? I would just like to say thank you to Mindy for running the meeting while I was gone last month. I appreciate that. Other than that, I did attend a Chamber of Commerce, wasn't an economic forum, but it was a forum on the forest industry and how it affects our economy, or what was on the fires and how fires affect all of us, and what the state and the feds are doing to help mitigate and improve their firefighting things. I think Sonia was there as well. It was quite informative. Some really smart and articulate people in there, and yeah, so that was good. All right, Deborah.
Thank you. So speaking of fire season is officially over, and we have returned to normal settings. And then I just also wanted to call out that October 5th through the 11th is Public Power Week. We're celebrating along with approximately 2,000 other community-owned, not-for-profit electric utilities across the country. So I want to thank all of our dedicated employees whose daily commitment is what powers this community. I also wanted to thank you all, our board members, who voluntarily serve as stewards of our public mission. And then lastly, the customers who support us with their partnerships from emergency preparedness to supporting our infrastructure investments to ensure that we have a sustainable and reliable future. That's it from me.
Great, thank you. And just for the public and people who are watching on TV, Deborah's sitting in for General Manager Lawson, who couldn't be here this evening, but we're in good hands with our Assistant General Manager. Okay. Sonia had one more item.
I also forgot that I had attended the EWEB Safety Day on September 11th, I believe. And the speaker that they had, who came to talk about his experience was absolutely phenomenal. And I love that we have a safety day every year and we share resiliency with our staff. So thank you for putting that on and inviting commissioners to attend.
All right. Next item on the agenda is correspondence. We received correspondence with our packet. There were, I believe, 3 items of correspondence this month. Does anybody have any questions or comments about the correspondence that was put in front of us? The only thing that I would say is thank you. There, the one on the both of them, the Bertelsen project and the McKenzie Valley study were good. The Bertelsen project was something that we had brought up in the past as wanting some updates on. It was a good update. And as I was driving in today, I did notice some actual pavement down over on the Bertelsen side. So that was encouraging to see instead of just piles of rocks. So any other questions or comments? Okay, we're moving right along. We're going to move on to public input. So for people who are in the room, you can look up on the screen. These are our code of conduct, what to expect for our meeting today. I am going to read a facility awareness thing. I should have read this at the beginning, but I'll just touch on those things. EWEB management and subject matter are present in the room, and virtually the meeting is being streamed live and recorded. Please speak loudly so everyone can hear you. Public testimony is welcome. Sign-up forms are available at the back of the room. So if anybody is here and hasn't signed up, go ahead and do that. We still have time. Visitor access is limited to the boardroom and restrooms. Restrooms are located on the first floor through the right-hand door. In the event of emergency, follow instructions given by staff, and if evacuation is required, please calmly proceed to the nearest safe exit as identified and directed by staff and exit away from the building. With that, I will open up the public testimony. As of right now, we have 3 people signed up. The first one is Lily, and then Al, and then Alan or Alfonso. So Lily, you can come on up. You have 3 minutes to speak, and you can sit or stand, whatever you'd like. We'd be happy to hear from you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone, and thank you for allowing me to speak on behalf of the Upper Willamette Soil and Water Conservation District. My name is Lily Leiterman, and I am the Upper Willamette Soil and Water Conservation District Manager, and I have worked for the district for 10 years, and have been closely collaborating with EWEB staff through the Pure Water Partners program over that entire 10 years. I would like to briefly discuss the proposal presented by Carl Morgenstern, our board chair, highlighting the importance of this acquisition, the Rice Farm acquisition, and the reasons we are requesting this funding, the funding that is present in the packet that you have. Additionally, I assure you that we take this request and our responsibility very seriously. As Carl mentioned in his letter, the Rice Farm acquisition provides extensive conservation and restoration benefits, educational and food security opportunities for the community, reduces chemical use by transitioning from conventional to organic and regenerative farming practices that can, over time, be lessons that are exported to other orchards in the region, and will complement the work at nearby EWEB and MRT properties. It is also clear that the potential cost of this work is highly variable, depending on the design and scope of these projects, as well as the availability of outside grant funds to offset these costs. As a result, the district proposes that EWEB enter into a 5 or 7 year intergovernmental agreement with us to commit $1 million in funding for designing and implementing riparian floodplain restoration, green infrastructure for stormwater treatment, cover cropping to support organic and regenerative growing methods, and/or wetland enhancement and expansion projects. A primary point I want to make is that the district would work closely with EWEB and its other partners to develop the scope and design of restoration projects. Under this proposed IGA, EWEB leadership and staff can decide which projects and aspects of the collaboratively designed scope they deem approvable to support. For activities like initial design and permitting work, match for other grants, and more. I want to emphasize that this IGA would provide a clear directive for EWEB to approve funding on a project-by-project basis. EWEB leadership would have the discretion to make decisions maintaining a low risk to EWEB. At the same time, the Soil and Water Conservation District could have some assurances that EWEB will help us fund the implementation of critical restoration and conservation activities on this property over the next 5 to 7 years to ensure achievement of conservation and restoration goals. We hope you will consider this proposal, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next will be Lily and then Alfonso. Oh, that was Lily. Sorry, Al is next.
Do it again.
No, Al first, then Alfonso. You're first, you're Al, and then he's Alfonso.
Okay.
Sorry.
So many Al's in the room. My goodness. Hi, my name's Al Hernishin, and I am an elected zone director and board member of the Upper Willamette SWCD, from whom you just heard from Lily. I represent the public's interests in clean water and healthy soils. And so my constituents are all the people of Eastern Lane County, which includes your customers and your consumers. Tonight, I'm asking for your financial support on the Rice Farm intergovernmental agreement that you are considering. Our organizations have beneficially partnered in the past, and this is another chance for EWEB and the Upper Willamette SWCD to collaborate on a project which I believe will benefit all of us. I went on the PWP tour this past Thursday up to Blue River, and that's a great, and just to see the amazing fire recovery work that's been done up there. And that's a great example of the kinds of collaborative projects that we need to engage in. We engage with you, McKenzie Watershed Council, who's also in the room tonight, and some other organizations. And these are the kind of things that if you have a collaborative and productive partnership, great things can happen. And I believe this IGA that you're going to consider provides the ability to do that. Rice Farm is just upstream of your McKenzie River water intake. And what we together can do to help keep your intake waters cleaner, and that requires fewer resources to bring them up to the standards that you have to maintain. And so I think this is a chance for you ultimately to pass these savings on to your consumers. It seems like a big ask at first, perhaps, but consider that this IGA, even though the terms will come to an end in maybe 5 or 7 years, the projects that we take on are going to continue into perpetuity. And that means that long after this IGA has been completed, clean waters are still going to be produced and being sent not only to you, but also downstream farther along the McKenzie River. So I think sooner or later, this project has to pencil out if that's the case. I also think that it's relevant here to look at the bigger picture and consider our role in the water cycle. We all extract waters, we dirty them up, they have to be cleaned. Certainly you know this, but EWEB, you represent a lot of people doing this. And I think this is a chance to send these clean waters on downstream, Lynn County, Benton County, seriously, all the way to the ocean where these waters, just they enter into the water cycle again and the process starts all over. I think it would be nice for you guys to be able to say, hey, look, public, we had a big hand in making these waters clean and safe and usable for everybody and everything that uses these waters. And I think together we can be a part of this. So anyway, thank you for your time and consideration. Hope to hear from you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Now, L2, Alfonso. Alfredo, sorry.
You got it.
Alfredo.
Well, hello again. So I'm here to talk about a few things. Fees mostly, because we talk about sometimes figuring out ways to help low-income people. And I'm looking at my bill here. So last month was $122. Of that, my actual usage was $18. And the rest is all fees or delivery charge. Okay, there's $15 for stormwater, which we didn't have any rain, but add that onto my 18, that's okay. So anyway, for low-income people, maybe knock out some of these fees. Maybe we can fill out some kind of application form to get rid of those or some kind of qualifications. And then also the age-old battle about the smart meter, and now it's the smart meter fees that are going to be imposed. Since 1999, I've had my service with EWEB, and all that time, my bill has been paying for someone to come out and read my meter without any extra charges. Suddenly, because I'm an opt-out person, I'm going to get charged 100, whatever it was, 120 or 150 for a setup fee for something that's already been being done for, what is that, 26 years in my case? And then $20 a month for someone to come and look at the meter on my house. I mean, I could send you guys pictures of my meters, send someone out every 3 or 4 months to make sure I'm not cheating, you know, something like that. We should keep these prices down. I look at some of these fees again as, you know, we talked about this before, as kind of like a coercion, a punishment. And that really doesn't feel good. We should have our choices. I'd like $1 million grant to restore my whole block to analog meters. If we could put that through. But anyway, so that's basically all I've got to say today. Thank you so much. And I will be leaving the meeting to go to my scuba club meeting. And as far as, water quality, you know, I went up to Fall Creek the other day and dropped down in this, what used to be 25-foot deep hole. That whole area looks like it's been burned out. Now it's about 20 feet deep, and the water definitely was not as clear as it used to be. So I can see changes in the water, and I'm sure you guys are aware of all that too. So thank you very much.
Thank you. With that, do we have any other people that have signed up? Okay, I will close the public testimony and open it up for comments or questions from commissioners. Okay, thank you all for coming and testifying tonight. As far as the Upper Willamette Soil and Water District, that is an item that is on our agenda later, so we'll be discussing that at that point. Okay, next up is the approval of consent calendar A, item 5. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, unanimous. Okay, next is approval of consent calendar B. Commissioner Brown.
I'd like to remove the IGA city just for a question.
You bet. Anybody else want anything else pulled? Okay. All right. You want to pull that? Okay, so that was number 3, you said? Number 3 pulled as well. So, Mindy.
Calendar. 3 and 5.
All right. Is there any discussion on that? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, we'll start off with number 3.
I just wanted to get a quick clarification from staff because I noticed such a drastic difference between the 2 bids that we received. $4 million difference, 33%. If one of the staff could just talk a little bit about what we're getting between the 2 contracts that really warrants Corello over the other option, since both are Portland firms and whatnot.
So I'll just go ahead and start. So for the record, Karen Kelly, Chief Operations Officer. And as you know, these are qualification-based approaches to getting the contractors. So the first step, just want to mention, is all about their qualifications, and the pricing is separate from that. From that, I just want to push this over to Laura Farthing, our principal engineer, who can give you some details about what the differences are between the proposals.
So like Karen said, the way that the Oregon purchasing laws are written, consultants have to be picked on a qualification-based selection process. So in this case, the price was worth 15%, and then their project experience and background, and then their team was worth the other 85% of the total score. So Carollo did score significantly higher based on their experience. They have designed the last, I think they said 19 treatment plants on the Willamette River. They just went through Grants Pass, where they've been working as their design engineer. So they bring a lot of relevant experience on value engineering and looking at, you know, what we can do from a cost savings perspective. They also had a much more local team. The pricing is very different. CDM Smith had a much smaller scope and a lot less services, particularly through construction, project management, inclusion of operations and their opinions in the process and design. That's really where the big differences came in. Preliminary design, both consultants had the exact same dollar amounts of about $2 million. That's our first step in the process. And then they kind of varied from there, but it really came down to construction services and the number of hours they dedicated to that. And like I said, project management.
So quick follow-up, if we had gone through the process and there hadn't been such a drastic difference in the scores, but there was still a very drastic difference in the price, you don't have the opportunity to say, actually, we should go with the lower price one if the qualifications are similar. Is that correct?
I believe, and Quentin maybe can speak to this better than I can, but we would have been able to go through, as long as you give equal opportunity. If their scores had been the same for experience, it would have come down to price, and then we would have been able to go with a lower price. But in this case, their qualifications and their experience was much different.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
And I understand why we have this system. We have the system so that we protect against lowballed prices with groups that are inexperienced and actually can't perform the job. And then we have, challenges with the work later. So I totally get that. It's just that price difference was eye-catching. So I wanted to call it out a little bit.
I will say it was a significantly less effort and services provided at that $8.9 million.
Okay, great. I'm good. Thank you.
John?
3 years ago at our legislative things, we had a bill that was being promoted by the architects to mandate this, that said that we can't, it takes away the bidding process. And is that a result of it?
Correct.
So that this is a result. I know we oppose that. And because of now, I think we have a real life example. It's $4 million. Granted, but you make your decision, but there was an effort to get a law passed that said that we had to do this. We didn't have a choice. And that was a result of that legislation from several years ago.
Correct.
Yeah.
This is not an EWEB policy. This is a state policy. We're required to follow it. And it was pushed by architects and engineers.
Right. Thank you.
Other questions about item 3? Okay, we'll move on to item 5. John?
Yeah, just regarding the IGA. So my memory sometimes is good and sometimes it's bad, but I've been led to believe that this net difference in the billing cost to the city would be over $1 million increase to them. Okay,
That
so
is correct.
it was $1.62. Now it's $1.97. That's 35 cents a bill. We got 90,000 customers. That's 378,000 a year. How do we get to $1 million?
It's going to $3.48. It started off at that $1.62 when it was approved. And then over time with annual adjustments, it came up to the $1.97, and now it's going to the $3.
So the $1.97 I'm seeing in the background, or I didn't see where it said the $3.
That is in the memo, and that'll be the new charge.
Okay, maybe I'm.
Sorry about that confusion.
Yeah, I just must have missed where it said $3.
Page 2, proposed fee update.
Okay,
Sorry about that.
no, 348. Okay, got it. My bad. Right, thank you.
Sonia?
So does that mean the entire time we were just eating that additional cost?
So it does mean that we feel like we were missing costs of our billing department that were not included in the original methodology. Additionally, a piece of that is that over time, the city's charges have become proportionally more of our bill, and merchant services fees have continued to climb. And so those merchant services fees are a big piece of that too. And they'll now be rolled up in this per month or per bill fee instead of billed separately.
Okay, so it'll adjust automatically then for the merchant services if those fees change, or it's just that one set bill and then we'll have to go through this process of updating?
We'll have to update the feed. So the fee we have a provision to update the feed periodically and evaluate those merchant services fees as a part of that.
Great, thank you.
Other questions or comments? At this point, I would look for a motion to approve these two items from the consent calendar.
Move to approve the balance?
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Unanimous. Thank you. Next item we have is Upper Willamette Soil and Water Conservation District Investment Opportunities.
Good evening, President Borowski, Commissioners, Assistant General Manager Hart. I'm Karen Kelly, Chief Operations Officer, and I'm here to talk to you about the proposal that you just heard some testimony from the Upper Willamette Soil and Water Conservation District. I'm going to refer to them as the district so that I don't trip up on my words. So in July, the EWEB Board of Commissioners received a request to provide funding in the amount of $1 million to the district to help fund conservation efforts regarding their planned purchase of the Rice Farms property. This property is 290 acres and located very close upstream to our Hayden Bridge filtration plant. In response and based on board feedback at that meeting in August, we requested the district provide us with an interim management plan, an outline to their approach, the collaborative planning that they discussed, financial information pertinent to the managing of the property, and the stewardship calculator results. We did receive that information on September 26th, and that is included in your board packet. Given the proximity of this property to our intake and the potential to improve watershed stewardship on this property, we are excited to support projects like the ones that are identified in the district's proposal. So before you, on the left hand of this screen, you have the request from the district, which includes $1 million investment over a 5 to 7 year period through an intergovernmental agreement that we would have staff work upon with the district staff. Within that is a couple of focus areas: riparian floodplain restoration, green infrastructure for stormwater treatment, cover cropping to support organic hazelnut production, and wetland enhancement and expansion projects. In the proposal, EWEB would approve the use of the funds on a project-by-project basis after other funding had been pursued and resources are known. So I want to respond to that request. We really do like this approach, with them having us review and approve the use of the funds on a project-by-project basis. This is in line with many of our collaborative agreements in which we have a master services agreement. And then that sets the boundaries for our interaction, but allows us to negotiate for specifics around projects through individual task orders. And while we are supportive of this type of approach, we are recommending the board consider a modification to allow us to provide support both in kind and direct monetary financial support. We believe this approach will help us protect investments made on this property, especially given the planning for its management is in the early stages. Taking a project-by-project approach, considering both in-kind and monetary support, will ensure alignment with our source water protection plan and existing priorities. It also allows us to leverage existing partnerships and contracts that EWEB has deep experience with. It ensures resources, both staff and financial, are managed to achieve specific outcomes and metrics. And why this modification is important to us is, as mentioned earlier, the interim property management plan is, again, in its early stages, and much could change. Staff recently went on a tour of the property and along with the district staff, and realized that there's a lot of work to be done there. And there's a lot of questions still about impacts of property management on water quality, things such as livestock management,
security, illegal camping management, and then the conversion to organic farming. If we provide the funding as requested, and as mentioned back in August, this would be about $200,000 a year. It could be navigated with an incremental 0.5% rate increase in 2026. However, we have already made reductions in our planned budget and face additional increases in potential rates in the coming years for things such as taking on the ownership of the hydrants and possibly funding the second source construction. So with the budget that we have already within source water protection, we do have about $2.1 million in non-labor funding for 2026. That does go down in subsequent years because of the watershed restoration fee expiring in June, I think, of 26. So we are concerned about our existing ability to fund and what the impact of this request might have on rates. And we think that this modification provides the flexibility for us to come to the board should new projects be identified and we need to make a change to our budget in order to accommodate those projects. So it's also possible that the district could sell parcels of this property in the future. And one of the things we want to make sure happens is that we set up a perpetual conservation easement over the portion of riparian land that EWEB intends to invest funds in restoring through the district's proposal. So that is something that's also important to us. Alternatively, we might be able to develop a way for partners' first right of refusal should there be any land sale. And then the other concern is the farm has been operating in the red for many years, and this approach would allow us to have more time and information that would lead to a stronger feasibility study on the future financial investment that could be made for this property. So those are some of the concerns and why we think this alternative approach is worth considering. With that, on the slide, you see the first thing to consider is the proposal from the district. Again, it is to enter a 5 or 7 year intergovernmental agreement with the district and commit $1 million in funding, or consider the staff's recommendation, which is to develop that IGA, but incorporate support through a combination of in-kind and monetary support. That would be within consistent budgets and targeted outcomes, but not guarantee a specific amount over time. So wouldn't cap it at 1 million, maybe under, maybe over, depending on the projects and how they align with our source water protection plan. And with that, we're happy to answer any questions as you deliberate on this or come up with your own options. And we've got some resources in the room and online to help answer questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Commissioner Brown.
Thank you.
As you know, I'd probably give you every penny you have in your coffers if I could, if it was necessary, but I'm reluctant to give a blank check in option number 2 because it doesn't, I mean, right now, option number 1, we know what the cost is. Option number 2, we don't. And so I would probably want to amend that to say that without coming back to us, that you would option number 2, which I support, that would have a cap when we're calculating our staff time and our monetary considerations, it'd be $1 million, because in the projects you listed about fire hydrants and things, I didn't hear the 42nd Street levy. And that to me is the grill in the living room. That thing going to cost us a whole lot more than any of those other 2 if we have to participate in stopping that river from encroaching on 42nd Street. So I would support this wholeheartedly with a cap of $1 million on number 2.
Okay, and just to clarify, option 2 would be in line with how we monitor the budget now. So coming to you with any requests for anything over 150,000 would still be what we would come to the board with to get approval for.
Would that also include staff time? Because if you put in.
Right, it would not.
So that's.
Although it's in the budget, it's part of the budget, annual budget request.
Okay, so I just want to make, if we write checks for $1 million and we have $1 million worth of staff time, that kind of defeats the intent of what I'm talking about. So I just would like to, we're strained on money. And so that's my concern. I'm all for this, but I just want to make sure that it's not a blank check.
Other commissioners? Mindy.
Yeah. So I'm supportive of option 2 as well, but I don't think that we need to stipulate a cap because if there was some work that was strategic and we decided it was really important for us to do and it pushed us over that $1 million, but it was important enough that we wanted to do it, I wouldn't want that to stop us. So I think as long as it's, like it says, consistent with our budgets and targeted outcomes and done in a strategic way, I don't think that there needs to be a cap on it.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm in agreement with Commissioner Schlossberg. I think I'm in support of number 2 without needing to put on a cap. And I want to acknowledge that I think option number 1 would be the easier path for this agency, and that staff is supporting option 2, I think is something to be noteworthy of more work for your team, but also that it's important to put in that effort. Yeah, I think we don't know what the future holds, and being able to allow our staff to navigate potential changes, potential opportunities, potential pitfalls as things come up, I think is good. It doesn't mean that we don't have oversight over it, as many of these would most likely come on our agendas and come to us anyway. So I think that this is great. I think it puts trust in our staff and in this team, and I think really provides a positive outcome that could lead to incredible work being done. So I'd support option 2.
So kind of broadly speaking, thinking about purchasing property next to the river. I mean, this is so close to our intake that it makes more sense to me. But I do want to be cautious and just kind of put that out there that in the future, looking at other properties in there, I know we're not purchasing it, but we're helping them facilitate purchasing this property. Again, it's very, very close to our intake, so I'm more supportive of it. But I also need to think about, at what point do we say we're not purchasing, just to play devil's advocate? I mean, when are we not purchasing it? When are we not conserving all of the area around the river? When are the regulations that generally protect our waterways enough to keep them clean? Because we can't afford purchasing all of the water or the land that's along the waterway up above our intake. I would also really like to see some of the other partners that also have water plants in the region put in funding. I don't know if we can make some of our support contingent on that, but I would love to see that over time because they're getting the benefit of it and we pay a lot of money into it and I don't see as much coming back. So just, again, we'll put that out there. I am supportive of number 2 because I think that I support staff in your assessment of the situation. I am curious if our partners will see number 2 as a viable option that they can then move forward with to commit to purchasing the property, or if we're going to hear from them again later that they couldn't purchase it because they didn't have a commitment. So I'm curious if you have any thoughts on that piece of it and in the discussions that you've had with them.
I have not talked to them directly about this. So I would call on Susan Fricky, who's our supervisor online, who has been talking with the partners about this.
Hey, good evening, board. This is Susan Fricky. I hope you can hear me okay. I'm coming back from Portland right now and in my car. My understanding, we haven't had direct communications on this funding other than the letter from Chair Morgenstern, is that this would just be used for stewardship and for some other projects. This doesn't have to do with the purchase amount. And I did not see in the interim management plan of any other funding being sourced from places like SUB or any secured grant funding from any other source. The only request I saw was for the EWEB one. So I cannot speak to the other funding sources.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I'd love to see us put out maybe some match funding. Like if we're going to put this out there, then we'll do it if there's some match funding that comes in with it. My 2 cents. I don't know what others think of that idea, but otherwise I am supportive of number 2.
Well, I think I'm going to go a little bit different way than the rest of the board. From the way that I read the letter is one of the things that is important to making this project go is a management plan. You know, to get all these pieces put together between the trust, Upper Willamette Soil and Water District, again, Mackenzie Watershed Council, a bunch of people that are going to be coming together to try and make this thing work. One of the components that I saw that they were asking for was that they did need this management plan as one of the key pieces to make the whole deal go. That may or may not be true, and the number 2 option may satisfy that, but it seemed to me like the cleaner way, again, was the number 1 way. I know that that's a rate increase of 0.05% in 26, but on the other hand, the $3 fee that went to habitat restoration after the holiday farms is going to be going away approximately the same time, which is greater than the 0.05%. You know, when we talked about that fee, we were talking about trying to keep it on, and I don't know if the will of this board is to move that fee in perpetuity, but if that does go away, this is a very important piece of property. And if $200,000 a year for 5 years can help us acquire this property, and if we don't do it, it may not work, I would be in favor of option number 1. Now, that being said, I see the votes around here. I would really want to know that if we go with number 2, if that makes this deal a non-starter for them. Because if it is, and they can come back to us and say, we really appreciate what you're doing. We understand that, you know, in kind and cash that we'll do it at this point. But if they don't have a set plan to move forward, it may kill this deal. And that would be something that I would be absolutely devastated. If we had an opportunity for in perpetuity conservation district on this much land, that close to our water intake, for 0.5% increase in 2026, and we let it get away, I would be sick. And so I would be in favor of number 1. I see where we're going, but I would also be open to have this reopened if for some reason our decision on going with number 2 jeopardizes the project going forward. So that's where I would leave it. Mindy.
I guess I feel like the action number 2 gives us some more flexibility, but doesn't rule out us providing the money that would be necessary to secure the property. I think to me, I just read it as maybe just instead of just writing a check for it, maybe there's other, or in terms of like developing the plan or something, maybe staff time can be used for that. And again, it does list monetary support. So I think it doesn't mean that we're not going to be giving monetary support. I don't know if that's too vague to satisfy what's being asked of us. So I'm still leaning towards number 2, but I feel like what we've heard from most everybody here is that everybody is supportive of this project. So I guess I would also want a guarantee from staff to kind of honor that intention from the board that we want this to happen. Yeah, that's all.
Tim and then John.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, that was my interpretation as well, that option number 2 could provide a monetary support of what would be needed. I think my question, if you don't have this information, that's totally fine, but when is the deadline for the final, like when will the deal or conversation need to be made before there's a solid yes or no?
I recall the original letter said they were going to their board this month. So I think it's this, we timed this so that we could give them some direction on our support.
So if hypothetical it comes back and says, that's actually not the firmest commitment. We are not interested in this anymore. Does that mean that this whole conversation is over? Or does that mean that our board could come together and provide come back with option one instead or something different?
I believe any option is possible, especially when you're purchasing property. A lot of things ebb and flow with that, so.
I decided to ask my question in possibly the most convoluted way possible. So thanks for interpreting it. Yeah, I see option two as I think even a stronger commitment than option one. I think it shows direct community support. I think it shows that there's consistent support. I think it's a good plan. So check.
Done.
Point of clarification, any of the money or any of the assistance we provide has nothing to do with the acquisition, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so this, whatever we do isn't going to affect their ability to acquire it. They've got the money to acquire it and they're going to proceed. They've had it appraised. They're going to get a charitable contribution. I've read through all of that. So my reluctance is giving an outside agency the ability to spend as much money because you can't tell me how much option two is going to cost us. Nobody can. And given our fiscal constraints, if we say, okay, you've got up to $1 million, and then if you need more, come back. But if we just give them carte blanche and say, because there's nothing more important than the preservation, look at our customer services surveys. The preservation of our water and the integrity of our water is the top thing that comes out every year. And there's nothing more important and it won't get there. But if we go out and say, you can do what, basically, have we ever given an outside agency a blank check and just said, spend whatever you want or have no limit or have no plan? I can't in good conscience do that. This is going to cost us $1 million one way or the other. I'm all for that. And whether it's one or two, but I think two is what the staff wants. I'm fine with that, but I just don't want it to go over $1 million without you coming back to us and say, I can't think of a project that's not important. And I can't think of an idea that we wouldn't approve, but to just have that out there, it's like saying, how long is a piece of string? Nothing's been defined. And we have no idea what that's going to cost us. So I'm still going to support number two, but I'm vocal on the limit, at least without you coming back to say we need more and why.
So what I heard was that our decision tonight on either of these, there is completely separate from their acquisition.
That's what I understand. However, I think they're really looking for a commitment from us so that they don't just have a piece of property and don't have the money to do something with it.
Okay. Sorry, there were so many other comments before that were contingent upon that linchpin. That's news to me and very interesting. I think that if for some reason it did, then I would have a different opinion about going to number one, and I would want to make sure that their board didn't come back and just hold us kind of hostage to it, based on the fact that we just said, well, we're open to it. Because again, I support the project. I think it's a great project, but I also want to make sure that staff have oversight and we're analyzing the pieces that we're spending it on, which is why I like number two more. It gives us the flexibility to support the pieces that we think are very valuable and provide the staff time and the guidance to make the project successful. Whereas one looks more like a blank check to me to make sure that the project goes through. But if it's not hinged on that, then I'm definitely more supportive of number two over number one. Thank you.
Again,
Commissioner Carlson, would you like me to step in for a second and talk about that?
Okay.
Okay, sorry about that. Didn't mean to interrupt you, sir. Yes, the things that were in the letter this time from Chair Morgenstern were all stewardship. We're all like activities that they were asking for funding or that could be funded by EWEB that are post-acquisition. In the most recent letter, there was nothing about the acquisition hinges on this funding. They said they have ample funding for the acquisition. And so then there was an idea of a handful of activities that could be done with this funding. Those are the ones that staff has requested that we be able to negotiate which ones we delve into and why, and which ones would be covered with in-kind capacity and which ones might need some more funding or contracts we hold or, outcomes that would be like that. So That's what this last letter said. It was not for the acquisition. It was just for stewardship and, cleaning up areas, maybe doing some planting invasive control, things like that, that we are already been supportive of in other properties upstream of the intake. Does that help clear it up a little bit?
Yeah, I guess I just interpreted it that they were using the post-acquisition support as part of their operating cost, so that they would look at the kind of the net present value of the entire project and say, okay, if EWEB is supporting X, Y, and Z, then we can make the entire project work, because you're not just going to look at the cost of the acquisition. You're going to make sure that you can see, the operation of the entire program fits. And so you're not going to only look at that one piece to make the decision to purchase the property or not. You're going to look at the full picture. So that's why I thought that our support for the operating portions after it were still part of the decision making and the contingency on it. But if it's completely separate, that's great.
That's what it looks like to me. And from when I read through the intermanagement plan several times, there's still a lot of uncertainties that they need to work through, and including whether they're going to, which staff will be working on this, if they will hire more staff to work on this project, what the priorities will be. It seems like they're going to go and outreach more to do a stakeholder working group to figure out what people actually want to do. So that stuff needs to be done, in my opinion, before we would commit funding to certain projects. There's some, like planting and invasives, protecting riparian, which are, instant ones that we can support. Yeah, this would give us, I think, sorry, I'll let you guys talk.
Okay, so again, I just want to reiterate that I'm hoping that if we go with option number 2, that will be enough of an assurance to that board that they can go ahead and pull their trigger. Because what I heard when Carl came and testified, and then in the 2 memos that we received, was we got this big chunk of land. We're not a new agency, but their funding, the way that they're being funded is fairly new. They became a taxing district about 4 to 5 years ago. And so they're learning as they're growing. And I would hope that, they say, okay, we got this big chunk of land. We've got the money to buy it. It's going to take something to manage this land. We're going to need help with this. We've helped other partners up and down the river for decades do these types of projects. And I'm just hoping that option number 2 will give them enough confidence going forward that they can pull the trigger and buy this property. Because what I understood was part of the linchpin of this was having enough money and a plan to manage it for 3 to 5 years so that they can get it going. So again, I'm really hopeful that if option number 2 is the one that moves forward, that there's enough assurances from us in that IGR or IGA that gives them the ability and the confidence to move forward with this purchase. So I'm for the clean number 1, but I will let it go if that's the way it moves. Any other discussion? So we are looking for a vote here.
Move to approve option number 2 with the note that it will follow normal board policies, and any monetary transactions will be brought back if it exceeds our 150,000 policy.
There a second? Any other discussion?
Thank you for that clarification, because I'll support that. So anything over 150,000 is coming back to the board, and it's going to be earmarked. But we're not going to have a limit on the monetary contribution of staff time. Is that correct?
So I wanted to add for you all, staff can go away and work on an IGA. They will go away and work on an IGA with the district, and that will come back to you all again, and we can provide further clarity. You'll all have an opportunity to see what we're proposing.
Mr. Morris.
Yeah, thank you. Is the intent of the motion that you made to keep that note as part of the motion, or is it just an acknowledgement that we have a board policy about the financials that.
It's an acknowledgement that we have a board policy.
Okay, I just want to make sure because that it might be redundant to have that language repeated again. So thank you. That was it.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Second.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, all in favor, say aye. 4 in favor, opposed? Aye. All right, 4-1. Thank you for the vote and the discussion. I appreciate it. This is an important part of our water clarity, and I appreciate all the work that is being done by the district and all of the partners involved. Thank you. Okay, next up is, oh, we can skip over that. We don't need to recruit a new manager. Let's just move on to, I guess we'll give it a few minutes. General manager recruitment.
Thank you. So good evening, President Borowski, commissioners. My name is Deidre Williams, and I do serve as the Chief People Officer for EWEB. With me today online is Lainey Mycroft of Mycroft 5 Partners, who is serving as the board's executive recruitment or recruiter for the general manager search. But today we are here to give an update on the executive recruiting process and are ultimately seeking direction from the board regarding some facets of the recruitment process and standards. Lainey, did you want to take a minute to introduce yourself and maybe give slight background?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Lainey. I have worked with you a couple times in the past, but I think maybe only John's the same board member. So it's nice to sort of see everyone, and sorry for not being there in person. I have been doing this for 29 years. Our firm has been around for over 50. We do a lot of work in the public power space, and I'm happy to answer any questions about what we do or our services, or if you have other questions for me before we launch into the things we propose today, which is sort of a timeline, and we've gotten some hiring criteria feedback from you and things along those lines.
Hi, nice to meet you. Thank you for joining virtually. I don't hold that against you at all. Traveling right now is terrible. I am a little bit curious if you could give us some of the climate that we're in right now, and if you know how you think the process might go as you talk about our process tonight. So if you could just pepper that in, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. I would say in general, this is a candidates market, not a utilities market. I would say that people that have a lot of talent and are very good at their jobs are pretty picky about where they will go, and there is a lot of competition for that talent. And so that might mean we have to be creative. We might have to look for talent versus specific types of experience. I think we will have to make sure we get to market as far as compensation goes, and all of those are going to be tools that we do our very best to try to bring to the table a robust list of people that maybe have different levels of qualifying experience so that you have some choices to address. But in general, we'll say a long list of candidates is a shorter list than it once was. You know, in past recruitments, you could easily see 20 resumes and a good half of those are very well qualified. I would guess that we might see more like half of that in this particular recruitment process.
Okay. Great, thank you for that context.
You're welcome. Anyone else have questions for me?
So, hi, good to see you again. I think
Hi.
it's been 10 years or whatever, but do you go back to the process when we hired Frank? I remember we had an internal process where you did an interview with all the department heads and all the other employees. Do you still have all that framework that we did that last time on the process that we engaged in and the outreach and how we structured that? Do you still have that available for us?
I do. I mean, I would have to go back and pull it up. It's not in front of me right now, but I certainly, yes, I would certainly have all of those notes and all of the information that we went through the last time around for sure.
Yeah, because I'm kind of a believer that if the process works and we're satisfied with the outcome, it would be hard pressed for me to change the process significantly without a basis for doing so. I just was wondering if we had that at our, so we can consider that in our deliberations when we figure out the final process.
Yeah, I think the process that we've proposed today or are about to propose today is very similar. I think the only maybe difference is, and I'd have to go back and remind myself, John, if I came and met with staff to get their feedback or if it was just with the board. I think it was just with the board to get their input and feedback on what we might be looking for, as well as the outgoing general manager at the time, Roger Gray. And I have had that conversation with Mr. Lawson. And here we are having this conversation, and I think you guys have given me some feedback, which we'll talk about today, more written, but this is our opportunity to have those discussions and sort of level the playing field about the hiring criteria and what we're looking for. So I think it's a little different in that we have some virtual participation as opposed to in person. The only other difference I'm remembering is I don't think you folks saw the candidates twice last time, and I can't quite recall that, and so I would have to go back and remind myself. But what we've proposed this time is a first round of interviews and then a second round of interviews. I think in the past, I did the first round by myself and gave you more specific reports and recommendations on candidates. I will have done some of that by the time I present resumes to you and recommendations, but I think our recommendation this time is maybe 2 looks at the candidate as opposed to 1. And that might be the only difference that we're proposing.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right. So the agenda today is 5 items, but I think we can move through them pretty efficiently. We're going to review and confirm the planned timeline for the recruitment process. Lane is going to lead us in a deeper conversation regarding the prioritization of qualifications and experience for the application process, determine the avenues to secure any stakeholder feedback, confirm the job posting document that we're going to use to advertise the vacancy, and confirm a pay range that we're going to use for this recruitment process. So this will look familiar to you. This was very similar to what we had up in last month's session. It's a refresh, and it has been updated to respond to the scheduling needs of both the board and my coffee break partners. After we complete discussion of the hiring standards and the hiring procedures at today's session, the next several tasks for the board will be handled in the executive session. That allows for protection of the confidentiality of both the process and our applicants and is allowed under Oregon statute. So at a high level, the better part of the next few months are going to focus on candidate sourcing and pre-screening and some of your initial views into those applications that come in so that you can sort of get a feel of who you want to talk to and how you're going to prioritize those.
And do you want me to talk about these different steps and walk through this timeline? Or has
Sure.
that already been done? Okay.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and do that?
Okay, so obviously the October 7th is what we're doing right now. We're having this sort of discussion to really vet what are we looking for in the next person, kind of talk through the process and so on and so forth. I think the next step is when I start doing my work to network, to post the position, to source candidates. We say it's going to start as early as tomorrow. That may or may not happen depending upon approval of the search description and so on and so forth, but we have quite a bit of time for us to do that. Usually I like at least 6 weeks for that, and we have plenty of time in that process between the October 8th and November 18th timeline. What's not on here is the date that I've sort of set for myself to deliver resumes to the board. I think the short list selection happens on December 9th, but I like to get things to you ahead of time so that you have a little time to sit with them and understand what we're talking about. And then when we talk about it on the 9th, you'll have specific questions for me. You'll have had my recommendations. You'll see resumes and things of that nature. And so the date that I would plan, according to this timeline, to deliver resumes to you would be the 25th of November, which is right before Thanksgiving. And then you would have a bit of time with those resumes to digest them, come up with questions, thoughts, things of that nature. That's not necessarily on this spreadsheet, so I thought I would bring that to your attention. The December 9th meeting, as I understand, I would be there in person. We would be sitting and talking through all the candidates. This is, John, what we did last time. I do remember being in front of you and visiting about different candidates, and we came away from that with the people that we wanted to do the first round of interviews with. And you'll see 2 blocks of dates in that second section after December 9th that we're holding at the moment, because those, I think, coincided with dates that you were all available to do interviews. We have 2 challenges, I think, that we might want to think about. The December 17th through the 19th dates are really a week after the time in which you select candidates. That may or may not work for us to schedule out of town people and things of that nature. It might work for us to schedule internal folks or local candidates and things of that nature. So we thought we would leave that block there just in case we can facilitate something more quickly. And if we can get folks there, I think the sooner the better. The second set of dates, December 31st to January 2nd, were right over holidays. So I just wanted to make sure you were all still available, you know, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, things of that nature. I think candidates could likely make themselves available for that, but so we're holding both of those right now, just in case there's a challenge to either one of those processes. But the idea is to use 2 or 3 of those dates back to back where we have a first round of interviews with candidates and go through that initial interview. From there, we get done with that round of interviews. We'll sit again and deliberate probably at the end of whatever these blocks are to select your finalists. And, you know, that can be 2, it can be 3. I think maybe last time we had 4, but I can't quite remember right now. And then those people would come back for a final round of interviews. And what we're proposing now is sometime between the dates of January 12th and 15th. We can firm that up or leave it totally open. My goal will be to tell candidates as I start networking and finding folks that are potentially interested, hold these dates in your calendar. That way things don't slip. And when we get to each of these different decision-making timelines, we know they'll be available for us. And then the rest is sort of the time that it takes for us to sit. You will likely deliberate and make a decision. I think January 28th is the suggested date for that. Usually the outcome there is we have some preferred candidates. Please go forth and say, you know, if you were to be our successful candidate, how much would you need? We have a little bit of that back and forth. And hopefully we're coming back to the table with something for you to vote on formally as an offer in February 17th, I think is the goal.
I just have a question about the interview process.
Sure.
So are all of the interviews virtual on Zoom or Teams? Or are they all in person or kind of both?
Well, we originally proposed Teams, and we've learned that there is no way to do that in an executive session. And so this is a decision for the board. If we want to maintain candidate confidentiality up to the point that they become finalists, which I do think most candidates would appreciate and would likely stay in the process further if we can at least guarantee candidate confidentiality up into a final interview round. Usually in public power, by the time you're a finalist, you know, it is more of a publicly discoverable situation. And so in order to keep that confidentiality, what we're proposing is to come in person and do those interviews in person, because then they can be held in executive session. You're likely to have more people and a more robust list of folks that would like to continue in the process if we can at least get, you know, some sense of confidentiality up until finalists. So that's what we've proposed here.
Lainey, a question on basically Plan B, because I'm looking at these timelines, and these people that we're going to be recruiting are probably already in a management position and a high level position. And I look when holiday schedules are for kids, both on the East Coast and the West Coast, and the holidays around the end of the year. And I also look at travel and weather, and I look at availability of travel. So what's Plan B? Because I don't want to lose a candidate, because he's already got a family vacation planned for the 17th to the 26th, and we can't interview him. And or we have 1 or 2 of the candidates that can't come because of weather. They get trapped in Denver or wherever. And so what is the thought process about that? Because better late than wrong for me. And you know, I don't want to lose a good candidate because they already have some logistics planned and everything. And so just if we could think about that.
Yeah, good question. I think that's why we held both dates as well, both sections, December 17th through the 19th, and then the 31st through the 2nd, in case of any of those eventualities. I would say in addition to that, as I'm talking to people, you know, we're networking, I'm doing screening interviews with these folks. I'm going to mention these dates and ask them, to either hold them or tell me if there's conflict. If there's conflict, I'm gonna report back to you. We have conflict. I mean, I will be giving weekly updates, and if that means we have to pivot and move dates further down the road, if there are folks that I say, we haven't selected, you have not made your choice, but I think some of your very strong prospects aren't available, we might have to look for other dates. And so I feel like that could be iterative without necessarily coming up with other things to hold in your calendars unless you prefer to do so.
Well, I'm just wondering that if we get pushed back a week or two around the end of the year, does that commensurately push the entire schedule back that same amount of time? So we would be looking and, any push it back. I'm just trying to think about.
Yeah, I think worst case scenario, let's say we have to use the second round of dates that we're planning for the second final interview as the first interview. That's obviously a month delayed. Depending upon when Mr. Lawson's going to formally retire and how flexible he is, it might push how much notice somebody needs to give, how long we take to negotiate. I wouldn't want to go any further out than that. I would be a little concerned that we wouldn't be able to pull it together.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lanny. For me, the thing that jumps out is the December 31st is the second.
Mhm.
That doesn't work. I mean, I think we could push that to the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of the following week, which is like the 5th. Kids are back at school, but doing it over the holiday weekend just seems problematic for both candidates and board members.
Yeah. Well, what we could do is hold different dates for that second block. I mean, continue to hold the 17th through the 19th in the event that all things line up and it's fantastic and we pick people on the 9th and I can schedule them for those times and we're done. If you'd like, we could poll the board and find other dates that are after January 2nd for that first round of interviews. If that's the case and we do push out that far, we're likely to have to come up with a secondary set of dates for the final interviews that might work to allow enough time in between interviews for people to schedule travel and get out there and do all of the things.
I mean, I'm concerned that the candidates might have challenges with those dates. I personally don't, and it's actually slightly better for me in terms of time because I already have those days, or I have at least one of those days off, whereas other days pushing out in the future, if we're doing them during the daytime, I have a job and I need to go to that. So it gets more challenging unless we're doing all of these in the evenings. And I don't know what the plan is time-wise there, but I'm assuming some of this has to be during, regular business hours because we have to accommodate different time zones. So I want to be cognizant of that too. You mentioned that we can't do it through Teams. I just wonder if we can, if we could allow that to be the preference of the candidate. So we could provide some flexibility if we had some in-person dates versus some Teams dates, if that helps with traveling during what is a nightmarish season anyway.
So one of the Teams is an option, or virtual interviews are an option. The problem being that it becomes difficult to maintain the confidentiality of the process. If you allow a virtual participant, then you need to allow any type of participant to be virtual, which could involve media participants. And while we're not concerned about our media partners, there is an opportunity for someone not on the media list to piggyback on a Teams call in, and that could break the confidentiality for those candidates. So it is a possibility. But the board does weigh that.
Could make that determination if they choose that no, that is more important to them, or that they don't have trust in it, that they could visit us in person versus doing it on Teams, because it just seems like another challenge for them to travel during that time.
Back to Commissioner Brown's question around timing and weather delays and things like that. Again, it is a possibility that we could use virtual interviews, particularly within the shortlist interviews. But again, just knowing that's the piece we're weighing.
Okay.
And I'll add, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, I think we should keep moving along because this is we're already halfway through the presentation and we're just on the timeline.
Yeah.
So go ahead, make your comment and then let's move to the next section.
Yeah, well, I think we can be as flexible as we want to be. I'm happy to offer that to candidates and say, hey, if you're not worried about confidentiality, we can do this virtually. But to your comment before, you're likely talking about 2 straight days of interviews. So you're right. These are days that you might take off. I mean, even if we could do some in the evenings, you're spending an hour and a half with maybe 6 candidates. You know, that's a good stretch of time. So I do think I'm happy to be as flexible as you'd like to be. I don't think it's likely that a lot of external candidates would want their names out there at that stage, but I could be wrong.
So just for confirmation and direction from the board, what I believe I've heard is perhaps more conversations around the timing once we get to shortlists, interviews, and finalist selection. And to reframe that, okay, so I will work individually with you on getting that input. And we will revisit this at a prior session, or sorry, subsequent session to finalize that. Hey, so in the last few weeks, each of the board members responded to a hiring criteria survey sent to the board on behalf of Lane Mycroft from Mycroft Fry Partners. It was sent individually to all commissioners and was designed to keep the survey results segregated from each commissioner so as to fully comply with public statutes controlling the executive hiring process for public companies. Accordingly, the aggregated results provided in the board package will provide the first view into the board's prioritization of the qualifications and skills necessary for a general manager candidate. Lainey is now going to lead the board into a discussion regarding the survey and the board's prioritization of the education skills and experiences required for a successful GM. Lainey?
Yeah, and I won't go through each of these slides. I think that might be a bit much, and it sounds like we want to be cognizant of time, but maybe just to call out a few things. I think the most obvious alignments were on some leadership acumen, you know, integrity, trustworthiness, setting a compelling vision and strategy, implementation abilities, and coaching and developing others were things that it seemed like everyone had high on their list. Obviously, that doesn't mean I'm not going to be focusing on all of these other things. I'm certainly going to be focusing as much on these things as possible, but I heard those as the priorities, and it seemed like they were everyone's common priorities. But not surprisingly, we're looking for lots of different leadership acumen. And so just to be clear, not all of this will be articulated in the search description, but I take it so that I know how to grade candidates and vet them and bring the right sorts of folks to the table. And so I think there's quite a bit of alignment there. I think there's also quite a bit of alignment on the types of experience that you'd like to see. I mean, you did have, I think, a refresh of your job description, and in that, you know, there's some pretty strong language about maybe a CEO of already a public agency or somebody in a very senior executive role in other types of organizations. Your individual feedback showed a pretty strong preference for the not-for-profit sectors, whether that was cooperative or public power, with maybe some options for IOU folks if they share that right leadership and managerial acumen. And so I plan to take a broad brush to look for all of the above. But certainly it seems like we're leaning a little more heavily towards that not-for-profit and public power space. I think one of the surprises for me was knowledge of BPA didn't score very high, where in the past and in most of the recruitments that I do in the Pacific Northwest, that scores pretty high. Some regional experience and knowledge I cited in the job description or the search description that we talked about as a desired and a preference, but it didn't seem to be as much of a preference for everyone. So I thought I might re-gauge that and ask you specifically how important it is to you folks individually that maybe some knowledge regionally or of the BPA market. Where does that rank for you in terms of priority?
Well, I'm looking at some staff here that I think have probably, in my opinion, some of the highest level understanding of the Bonneville operations and things such as that. And I think for me, I mean, to put all my eggs in one basket for BPA doesn't give the diversity of the public power versus that. And we have an incredibly qualified staff and that I rely on, and I think our new general manager will rely on too, if that's not their strongest suit. I would rather look at the CEO and COO experience because, you know, it's a whole lot more than BPA. You know, to
Yeah.
me, water is more important than electricity. So there you have it.
Fair.
I mean-
No, that's great.
I may have ranked it a little bit lower because we're going through the process of doing our BPA contract right now. And so it will, presumably be done for a number of years. Whereas I think, this last round of recruitment, it was really critical that we have somebody that can lead the team and understand that knowledge to set up the next contract. But I don't think that the next GM is going to have, obviously there's always working with BPA and getting through that, but I think that the biggest decision there is probably going to be off and running by the time
Yeah.
they get onboarded.
Well,
Yeah.
that's excellent. Yeah, that is what the feedback said. I just wanted to make sure I'm reading it right. And I'm glad you brought up John water experience. That seemed to be pretty important for everyone. That can sometimes be a limiting factor. Not every public power utility has water. Not every water utility has public power. So finding somebody that has both might be a little limiting. And so I might bring folks that don't have both to you. And you can decide if they have the leadership and managerial background and acumen to assimilate to one or the other services. Certainly my goal will be to bring both to the table, but again, I'd like for you to have as many choices as possible. I did see that working with unions, and some union leadership and negotiation might be helpful. So that's kind of highlighted in the job description. I think some good managerial seasoning is highlighted in the description that we're going to talk about here next. I didn't address this in front of us. Obviously, COO and CEO experience took the majority of the vote for the board as the types of things that might be most appealing. A little bit later, there was some comments about some good financial acumen and business sense and some folks from that realm. So again, I'm going to take a broad brush. I'm going to bring folks that bring maybe some seasoned operations experience, some seasoned financial types of experience, and some seasoned, if we can find it, sitting CEO experience. And those are hopefully going to be the candidates that we get to choose from. And I think in general, that's what I took. I did see a lot of comments about strategic planning. Maybe some shared energy efficiency demand response types of experience, because I think that's planned for you folks in the future as well. I did see some level of importance for previous work or ability to work with the board. So that's going to be pretty high on my list of things to look for as well. Similarly, working with members and stakeholders and community relations was pretty important to everyone. And I think that holds true for most public power types of roles. And that probably is why we like the not-for-profit sector types of individuals, because they will bring that to the table. And so I think in general, that's what I heard. Again, I hope you're flexible enough to let me bring you some choices to the table that maybe we have to look beyond exact experience and hire for talent. But my goal will be to get as much as all of this in one person as possible.
Great.
All right. So pivoting to a discussion on stakeholder feedback.
I'm gonna just chime in on one thing that I've seen in what Frank brings to the table as a general manager, and something that I really appreciated, and that is he's put a really strong executive team together. So when John talked about, does he need to know BPA, and does he need to know this, and does he need to know that? We've got really strong people heading a lot of our departments. And what I've seen Frank do is try to give those people the opportunity to do their jobs and help steer the organization rather than micromanage the organization. And that's something that I've felt it was very advantageous to moving the organization forward in the 5 years that I've been here. I've seen him empower his execs and let them do the job and just help coach them and move them forward. So for me, that's an attribute, and I don't know how you quantify that, but I know that there are different types of management styles, and some of them are very hands-on and some of them are very empowering. And I've seen how the empowering side has helped move this organization forward in the time that I've been on the board. So I don't know how you quantify that, but that's just something that I wanted to put out there so you had my feelings on that.
That's great. Thank you. Yeah.
So
In terms of the process, I'm curious if sorry, I just want to make sure that I throw this out there. May not be the exact time for this, but as we go through the process, I do want to make sure that we have a diversity, equity, and inclusion policy, and I am curious how we are going to relate those values to the hiring process. I mean, there are certain standards that you can utilize to ensure that everybody has a fair shake. I've heard already, a couple of times tonight referred to as he. I would like to make sure that we recognize that our next candidate could be a woman. I'm just throwing out there that those are the kind of things that I so care about, and I want to make sure that there's ways in which the process protects all kinds of candidates and all backgrounds. Thank you.
Yeah. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I always look for a list of candidates that are diverse in many ways, shapes, or forms, whether it's racial or gender or the types of backgrounds they bring to the table and so on and so forth. And I think we have a pretty good track record of that. And so certainly I understand the need to do it and the value that it brings, and we'll bring that to bear as well.
So I'd just be curious if there's any particular, hiring practices in the vetting. I've heard, sometimes names in the first round are removed so that you don't know whether it's a, female or male, or they have a name that's hard to pronounce, they get equal vetting. I don't know if that's part of your process, but I'd love to know a little bit more about that too.
Yeah, I would say it's difficult for me in that regard because I know a lot of these folks already in the industry. It's a little bit different. It's more of a finite group of people. If we start talking about public power CEOs or COOs or people around the country, I have likely run into them somewhere before. So even removing their names would not necessarily hide and much of what I do is direct solicitation of their interest. It's not asking for resumes and then reading it freshly through. It's a much more targeted recruitment approach. And so while I understand what you're saying and can totally appreciate that gives you a more blind view of a candidate, it's likely that I know a lot of these folks that we're going to be talking to some degree. And a lot of what I'm doing is calling, soliciting their interest, asking them for recommendations of other folks that they would recommend because I trust their opinions of folks that might not. So it's a slightly different take, and I don't know that I will meet the criteria that you're talking about of removing names and things of that nature. Yeah.
Maybe even when you're sharing the resumes with us initially, because I don't think that we do.
Absolutely. Happy to do that if that's what you prefer. You bet.
If others are supportive. I mean, that's just my preference, but I'll look to others too.
Okay. All right. So turning to stakeholder feedback. Last month's session, we had sort of an initial conversation regarding potential methods of securing stakeholder feedback, community feedback regarding this process. As it's a facet of the hiring process, we're seeking to get clarification from the board regarding what avenues you wish to use to secure that feedback. One thing that I'd like everyone to note is that a mechanism for soliciting and securing community feedback already exists. At the beginning of every general session, a portion of that agenda is set aside to allow community members and other stakeholders to provide feedback during the public input section. Interested parties are welcome to give testimony regarding the general management recruitment process at that time. Stakeholders are also able to give feedback to commissioners at any point through emails or letters to one or all of the commissioners. So those are the existing standing ways to give feedback that are known and utilized. There are other feedback mechanisms the board could elect to use. The board could direct staff to facilitate a special listening session as a portion of an agenda or as a standalone meeting that is designated and advertised to secure community feedback. Alternatively, it could also be possible to use digital tools, SurveyMonkey, things like that, to create an online survey form to gather such feedback. So as a point of discussion for the board and direction to staff, the question is asked, should a special listening session or survey tool be employed to secure community feedback?
Tim,
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this was a agenda item that I brought forward last month, and so I appreciate the dedication to bringing it back up and having this conversation. And I just want to acknowledge, I mean, we have spoken as a board that hiring the general manager is the most important decision that we're going to be making, and I think that should also be acknowledged with our outreach into the community and stakeholders' ability to weigh in. I think obviously folks can come to public comment and share their opinion, but I think it would be important to take another step in acknowledgement of the incredibly important decision. So I'm gonna sort of gauge how my colleagues, my other commissioners feel about a special listening session, but I would support a survey tool that's just open for the public to be able to weigh in on. And I think that's primarily just because of living here in Eugene, that our community is deeply passionate and very opinionated. And I think that this will give them an avenue to express their thoughts. Thanks.
Mindy, then John.
Tim, I think this might be the first time that I disagree with you. I just worry that doing something like this would be performative. I know I use that word a lot when we talk about the public process, but sometimes it feels performative when we ask the public for their input, because we've already put together a job description. We're working with a search firm. So what happens if a month from now we have a listening session and a group of people show up and say that they want something different? Like, are we gonna pivot then? I feel like there are many ways for people to offer us feedback and tell us what they want, and people are free to, like Deirdre said, come to public comment. People email us, people request meetings all the time, but I feel like it might just be opening a can of worms to have a listening session, because we don't know who's going to show up to that listening session. It could be like a certain group, or it could be certain constituents that are like-minded and not represent the broad community. And then if we hire somebody who doesn't have those qualifications or those qualities, then it'll seem like we didn't listen. And I guess I feel like this is a really big role of ours as elected officials, and we've been elected to make these decisions. So again, not that we're not open to hearing what people have to say, but I do feel that if we open it up to just a general listening session or even a survey monkey, I'm just not sure what we're going to do with that information.
I pretty much agree with Mindy, but I'm not afraid to listen to people that come to the podium, because this is such a complex set. I mean, electricity is so complex and water is so complex, and there can be misunderstandings and misperceptions. If we heard one this evening, well, just do away with this fee and do away with this. Well, we can't, because those fees represent costs and things such as that. And so if we set up an expectation that we can't meet, then, it's not shame on us. And so I'm more than open to listen to people that have public testimony and go from there. I think, Lainey, can you correct me? We did, what did we do 10 years ago?
We did not do a stakeholder outreach. I think the opinion of the board at the time was you were the represented folks from your different areas of constituency and representing their interests by being the people that made the selection. And so that wasn't something that we did.
Yeah, four of us represent two distinct geographic areas, and some of us have different criteria. I mean, different income levels, different
Sure.
motivations. I mean, people from my two wards will probably have different set of expectations for a general manager than people from Tim's ward or Mindy's wards, or you get everybody. And so, but I'm just thinking of that and thinking the way this organization is structured, we're supposed to represent geographic areas of the community. And to me, I want to do that outreach to those particular geographic areas. that doesn't mean I don't want to listen to others, but if I'm going to be true to my colors, so to speak, I want to make sure that I listen to the people of wards 4 and 5. So, thank you.
The interesting thing for me is that I think most of the general public has no idea who Frank is. They've never met him. He's been very successful over the last 10 years. So for them to weigh in and give, meaningful feedback is more, we want somebody who runs an organization effectively. I mean, that's what it means for me. But the folks that I care to hear from specifically are the people that work here day to day that are actually, more members of the public and have to deal with this person day to day. So to the extent possible, I would like to see more of our internal community feedback be help weigh in the process more than maybe external, because I just don't think that the general public, I mean, they can come and weigh in on values and the direction of the organization at any point in time, but it is so critical that we pick somebody that meshes well with the culture that we already have established. And for, obviously continuous improvement, we always want to be better, but I'd like to have more feedback from our internal community than maybe a broader listening session. I do like the idea of providing, when we get down the road, maybe having the final candidates provides maybe a letter that we could open up the public to, provide emails on. I don't want to do a full survey process. I just don't feel like that's I just think it's probably a waste of time. And again, we encourage the public to come. They can come at any meeting we have that is a regular session and come and testify. They can send us emails if they're so inclined to do so and pay attention to it. And that's great. And those people do. Otherwise, it just feels like we're asking for a foregone conclusion. So thanks.
So for me, I think the way that I'd like to see it play out would be let our communications team put out there, through our various media things, this is the way that you can comment on the general manager thing. Point out that the email address, point out that they can come and testify using the avenues that are available, that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. The one area, and this kind of goes to something that John said, or Mindy, that, a lot of these people don't know the complexities of all of this, but there are some key groups of customers that are familiar with the complexities, and those are our big key accounts. And I would hope that maybe our staff could get the message out to our big account holders, the people that are our biggest customers, some of our industrial customers, IP, those types of things, and ask them for input, because they are more familiar with what's going on here and what they might want to see from a general manager. That could be done at the staff level because they've got relationships. We've got a person has that under their guise, that's their look over the key accounts, but have them reach out to them and say, do you have any input? And would you send an email as well? That would be something that I would like to hear from, is some of those people, as well as the general, our 200,000 customers throughout the area. That's just me.
What kind of information would you ask them for? I'm just curious.
I would ask them the same thing that we're asking of the general public. What types of qualities would you like to see in a general manager? A lot of the people that we would be reaching out to are in the C suites of these larger corporations or industries, and may know the types of things that they would like to see in a upper management C-suite type of a person.
I was just going to say, I guess if we're going to open it up to them, then I would open it up to the general public in the same process.
And it would be the same process, asking them, just reaching out to them to ask them for input through email or testimony.
Oh, okay. Got it. So just reaching out generally to the public and account holders. I mean, that's all account holders then. Okay.
Well, again, I just go back to the performative piece a little bit, because we've already, like tonight, we're we're settling on our criteria and we're going to be posting the job description. So at this point, then to go out and ask the public or key stakeholders, what is it that you want? Like, we've already said what we want in a general manager. So unless there was, I mean, I just don't know what the point of it would be, but we can say, like, we are hiring a general manager. We welcome feedback. We always want to hear from people on a variety of issues. But I think specifically saying that we want to get feedback about that, well, like, that ship has kind of already sailed because we're far enough into this process, unless we decided to say we want to wait to hear the feedback we get from the public. And I don't think that that's something that we're planning on doing.
Tim?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the feedback, especially from my commissioners who have been here longer than I have. So I know from my community that they are extremely vocal. And I much appreciate that. And I'm hopeful to provide them an opportunity to come and speak. And so I appreciate that. Commissioner Carlson, you said something that really resonated with me of checking in with the team of folks here. And that's feedback that that is available to us as well. And I would hope that we really prioritize is hearing from the folks of people who work directly with the GM's office or maybe even indirectly. I think that is deeply valuable feedback that would be very helpful in this decision making. And then I agree with how the conversation has evolved from here of I suspect reaching out to specific account holders, we may receive a monolith of a response back. And I'm not too sure how much more information that would provide. So I'm a little hesitant on that one. So, check.
Other comments? Were you able to glean anything from that?
One comment I will make is that I hear a lot of interest in staff feedback. And I'll just remind everyone, we did bring this up last month, and I've noted it and know that that's something that we need to accomplish eventually, but that was put on pause because we weren't sure if there were internal candidates, and you don't want the prospect of an internal candidate skewing what the application process looks like.
I would just personally say that, around the kinds of values, the areas that we need improvement in, the general look for who we want to recruit, I think that would be still very valuable generally from the staff. But I know that's challenging if there are known internal candidates, but I would still like their feedback. I think that would be important.
I believe, Lainey, correct me if I'm wrong, but memory serves me that we had A, internal candidates last process, and B, we had a very robust internal feedback. It was anonymous by not only department heads and all the key the executive team, but also a lot of employees and things such as that. And it was an anonymous process where they could say, this is what I want in a general manager. And if I'm wrong, correct me, but I think that's what we did last time.
We did, that's accurate. I have a sheet from last time that all of that feedback was aggregated and shared with me, much like the feedback that you folks shared with me. It did not call out who said what. There would be no way for me to figure that out. So I can't quite remember how it was administered, but that was provided to me. It was valuable, and we did have 3 internals. I think we cautioned that if anybody planned to be internal, and then they needed to recuse themselves from that feedback process, but I don't know that there's a way to guarantee that.
Tim.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I hear the concern of internal candidate who may be interested in putting their thumb on the scale, but I also want to recognize we have hundreds of employees, and 1, 2, 3, 10 responses. I don't think would change the feedback, but on the other end of that, receiving however many feedback responses, I think would just be incredibly valuable. So I do think that's a concern. I think that can be a message that goes out of hey, this is, an integrity conversation of not putting in feedback if you plan on applying for this open position as an internal candidate, but I'm not too concerned about that.
All right, so let me repeat back what I believe the direction is. and the board can confirm. I believe there's an intent to get internal feedback regarding the candidate. Or regarding the process and the priorities. I can secure that for you. And I'll work with Lainey to ensure that that we're aligning with her needs as well for sourcing. I believe what I'm hearing is that any external feedback from community or stakeholders could be secured through the general inputs section at the beginning of any board session. And that we can put a reminder in there that that is what that general input section is for within the board session. Is that correct?
Also email and.
Or,
The other-
or email, yes. Is that accurate? Yes. Right. Hopefully we can move quickly through this next piece. In order to start kicking off the process for actually posting the job, securing candidates, we need to have a job posting. This is, really part of the hiring criteria. It's an artifact of that. So we are seeking for the board's approval of this job posting. The full job posting was in your materials. It's based off the job description that the board approved last month and was in the consent calendar this month for formal approval. I think it will kick off the candidate search and screening step, which in theory could start as early as tomorrow if we can move this piece through. Lainey, any really quick comments on this that you need for additional color?
I don't think so. I'm just looking through it there was one comment made by one of the commissioners this evening about being more empowering and delegatory as opposed to micromanaging. I want to make sure that's called out strongly enough, since that was maybe a new comment. And so I have to read through this to make sure that might necessitate an added sentence if we want to have that in here.
I don't think that would be necessary to add as added session. I think that would be something that could come out during the interview process.
Perfect. Okay.
So with that, does the job posting as drafted accurately describe the duties? Is the board comfortable with approving this job posting?
Didn't we already approve that? It was part of the consent calendar.
No, that was the job description. This is the job posting. Two different documents, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think I'm fine with it. It's a posting. It's not you have to check every single one of these boxes to be there. It's just a public document that goes out so that Lanny has something that she can send off and people can look at and say, yeah, I think I can do this job, and I would put in an application. So I'm fine with it. You want a motion to that?
Yes, a motion to approve job posting as was given in the board packet for use by Mycroft Fry Partners for the general manager recruitment.
So moved.
Is there a second? Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Yes. Okay, now the easy part.
Final topic, yes, compensation range. So as part of the overall recruitment process, we need to identify the compensation range. This is again part of the hiring criteria. It needs to be done in public session. Over the last few months, HR has worked to do an updated market survey of our comparator companies for their general manager positions. The results are on the slide, demonstrate that EWEB's general or current general manager pay is aligned and competitive with the market. When you look at all comparators, you will notice that EWEB's pay lags the market by almost 15%, But if you drop the highest and lowest comparators from the analysis, which is a common tactic used to eliminate data skew from outliers, you'll see that we're within 6% of market. So we're very close. So overall, and that's in the red boxes on the lower right-hand corner of the charting there. Overall, you'll see sort of a swing from 340, sort of a total comp based on additional benefits, up to 475 ballparky. That suggests that really a 350,000 to 450,000 range may be a reasonable range to be using with this recruitment, based, depending on the education experience that the final successful candidate brings to the board. Lainey, did you have some input that you wanted to add really quick before we turn it over to the board for discussion?
Yeah, I think you and I talked independently, and before seeing all of your data, we discussed what I thought the likely market was, and believe it or not, I came up with 350 to 450 is where I think you're likely to see most of your candidates that would have interest and be qualified to be seeking in terms of compensation. I might be slightly off. There might be wiggle room. I guess I would look for direction from the board. Do we have that range to work with? Obviously, at the end of the day, you will make decisions when you have resumes in front of you. And when I present those to you, you will have their salary requirements in rough form, so you can make some decisions and trade-offs. Is it worth going a little extra for this particular person or not? And so I think right now we need a range with which to attract candidates, but it's not necessarily marrying you to what you're going to offer the successful person.
Yes.
Sonia.
I support a range of 350 to 450. That seems like a pretty wide enough range that we can have some wiggle room, and you're the expert and you see this every day. So I'm going to go with your gut on it. Thanks.
I'll just weigh in. From the comment that you made earlier about it being a candidates market as opposed to an offers market, I would lean towards the higher side. I want to get the right person in here, and I don't want somebody that may be the right person look at 350 to 450 and say, I'm not even going to bother putting in my name at that range. So again, I would lend towards the higher. I would lend towards 375 to 475, just so that we don't lose anybody. I don't think we're going to get anybody in here at 350 that I want to have sitting at that front table. I think the market is out there. Oregon is Eugene's a beautiful place to live. Eugene's an expensive place to live. And Eugene is a place they're going to relocate to. It's compensation is going to be one of the major factors into getting the right person here. So I don't want to be lowballing people. That's just my feeling on this.
I agree with what John B2 said. That I think it's gonna cost us money to get the right person. When we went through the Roger Gray process, we were woefully low, and we lost some really highly qualified candidates in that process because we weren't aware of the salary range. Because I think, Lainey, isn't it true on top of this, we're going to probably offer a moving compensation and dual housing and things such as that, because they're not going to be able to sell their house and find a place and all that. But to me, this organization doesn't come without challenges, not the ordinary operational challenges. We've got Lieberg, we've got Walterville, we've got Trailbridge, we have Second Source. I can go on and on and on about the additional things that this general manager is going to have to face besides just running the largest public utility in the state of Oregon with the legal challenges, no coal, no gas, and this is going to be a daunting task, and we're going to have somebody very qualified. So I agree with John that we're going to have to go from 375 to 450.
Indy.
Lainey, you recommended 350 to 450. And then we've heard some suggestions of raising it higher. Do you think that we would miss out on candidates if it was 350 to 450?
I think it's possible. It's hard to know until I start making calls, but you'll find what I like to do is if somebody's close, I might present them to you anyway. Again, I want to give you options. So I don't know if this is a binding discussion about this is the range and you have no flexibility to go around it. If that's the case, then if we're open to it, I would encourage you to consider the higher range so that you aren't arbitrarily holding it low. I don't have to advertise it that way. I can say we're hoping for 350 to 450. I mean, the nice thing about what I do is I'm soliciting interest. It's not going to be posted. I'm going to have conversation. It's iterative. If somebody does some research and says, boy, I probably need closer to 475, I'm going to work to keep them in the process is how I usually function.
Em, you had your hand up?
We did. Thank you, Chair. Deirdre, are you looking for direction or a motion on this topic?
I think at a minimum, we need from the board is direction regarding the range to be used, so that we can finalize this for, and Lainey can use it with the recruiting then when she's having those conversations. Board will have to give a motion and a formal approval when we come to a final candidate and their employment contract.
Got it. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the response. Yeah, comparator 7 was shockingly high, and I think is a pretty significant outlier. And I'm a little more slated to listen to the expertise that we have coming in. And so I'm interested in supporting 350, 450, and also hear the flexibility that may occur if someone is not quite exactly in that range, but nearby. So I'm comfortable with that. Thanks.
You know, again, I'm just going to reiterate, if you look at the chart, we're 6.24 below the average right now at 405. So putting a 350 mark out there, you know, again, it's a range, but you got to pay people, you got to pay. This is $1 billion organization on an annual basis, and to have somebody that's competent in that role is going to cost us. I just would, like I said, she's got the ability to play with this, but I am for paying people what they're worth to get the right person in the job. Sorry.
No, there's part of me that you know, I look at this and it's surprising, but also we don't know, you know, what utilities these are, how large the utilities are. They major utilities. I know that our comparative pool is pretty vast. Some of these are probably, you know, Seattle and San Francisco. I mean, those also have their own very high expense living areas. Yes, we think of Eugene as high, but it's not high compared to some of these other locations that these folks may be coming from. I'm still supportive of the 350 to 450. It's not going to exclude the folks that she's recruiting because she can talk to them and put it out there if it's really a non-sticker. There's a lot of great things about this community that I think we can recruit people to be here, and we can always update it if we think that it's not getting the right pool of candidates. Personally,
we're not going to lose this over $25,000 a year compensation. Trust me. But you got to. I'm pretty sure that none of those comparators have water, electric, generation. I mean, we've got solar, we've got wind, we've got biomass, we've got every element there that you know, maybe they do, maybe they don't, but we've got every gamut of the public utility sector to deal with. And
so we do see complexity within EWEB in the utility that aren't necessarily seen in all the comparators. In particular, the first two comparators, comparator 1 and 2, don't have water and electric, right? They just have one or the other. To your point, comparator 7 is the only one that is in a large urban area in Washington. The rest are similarly sized to EWEB, more or less, in the Oregon or Washington areas.
I also want somebody who wants to be here. And if pay is the only thing and it's 25,000 that they're You know, I mean, there's a lot of really wonderful things about this community, and we've had Frank at the salary that we've had him at, and he did a fantastic job, and he loves this community. There's other things besides salary that draw people to being in Eugene. So I don't know. If it's a non-starter at 350, I'm willing to go to 375 to end this conversation, because I think it's kind of a moot point. We just need to pick a number and let her do her thing. So, does somebody want to make a motion?
Just need direction.
Just
Right.
direction.
I mean, it sounds like 350 to 375-ish to 450 to 475-ish. I mean, that's enough for you.
That's enough, that's enough for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
350 to 475-ish, and we'll call it good.
That sounds perfect.
All right. That is it for the general management or transition project today.
All
Thank
right.
you. Thank you, everyone. It was nice to meet all of the new folks.
Thank you, Lane.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. We went a little bit long there, but that's okay because Deborah can whip right through this long-term financial plan.
Appreciate the confidence. I'm going to let the team sit up at the table as they're going to do most of the talking. And then I'm right here for
crack the whip.
questions. For all your questions.
Good evening, Commissioners. For the record, Tia Marie Harwood, Financial Services Manager, and with me tonight are Alicia Voorhees, Financial Planning and Analysis Supervisor, and Daniel Davidson, Lead Financial Analyst. This evening, we are here to review the updated long-term financial plans for both the electric and water utilities, and we are seeking board direction on the 2026 draft budgets. Next month, we will return with a more detailed draft budget document along with proposed pricing changes, and we'll hold the first of 2 public hearings on proposed prices. The second public hearing on prices will be in December, at which point we'll ask the board to adopt the pricing proposals and approve the final 2026 budget documents. For the past several years, the utility has made significant investments to address aging infrastructure while navigating high inflation rates. Balancing economic pressures with affordability continues to be a challenge, leading to selective, risk-based, and strategic project deferrals in the capital improvement plans. Annual inflation, as measured by the Consumer Price Index in August, was 2.9%. Measures specific to EWEB services for electricity and water, however, are still slightly elevated, indicative of continued pressures in the energy and water sectors. Upcoming year rate proposals for both utilities will aid in EWEB's ability to perform ongoing investments in reliable and resilient infrastructure to support 24/7 products and services. So let's dive into the details by utility, and we'll have Daniel start with the electric utility.
Thank you, Tia. So here's a summary of the electric long-term financial plan that was also included in your board packets. This plan does not incorporate implications of the new BPA contract that will be effective in October 2028. It also does not include the potential changes to permanent fish passage at Trail Bridge. In the chart on the slide, as indicated by the red shading, the power operating reserve is below target in 2026. After the January 2024 ice storm, we drew on the power operating reserve to meet cash targets. In conformance with financial policies, this reserve will be replenished in 2027. As indicated by the yellow shading, days cash is within 10% of target in 2026. Looking at the revenue requirement, the first bolded line represents the unmitigated methodology of our current plan. Management remains committed to finding savings throughout the plan to keep the rate trajectory at or near the rate of inflation. The bolded bottom line represents the target rate trajectory that we would achieve with the savings identified here. Next slide. For the electric utility, the 2026 draft budget is about $5 million lower than 2025. The graph highlights the major budget categories. Capital spending increases are driven by improvements to substation and transmission systems. Purchase power remains the largest share of O&M, split between BPA and market purchases. Lower market prices reduce both market purchases and wholesale sales revenue. Additional O&M increases reflect inflationary pressures and the need to support transmission and distribution systems. Next slide, please. The overall revenue requirement for the 2026 electric draft budget is 3.9% and is necessary to meet reserve targets as well as allow the utility to adjust to inflation and prepare for infrastructure improvements. The graph shows EWEB electric rates position among comparators. The EWEB bill shown here does incorporate the BPA pass-through that was incorporated this month. We anticipate other utilities will incorporate similar pass-throughs or rate increases. However, we don't yet know what those rate increases will be. The final cost of service analysis results will be presented in November, but preliminary results show an $8 monthly increase for residential customers. With this increase, EWEB's position would remain mid-tier among regional utility comparators, given mutual pressures being experienced across the Northwest. So now I'll pass it off to Alicia to talk about the water utility.
Right, presented on this slide is the summary of the water long-term financial plan, also found in your board packet. And I'd like to note that the second drinking water source is not included beyond permitting, land use, and design work. All metrics are above target, though large debt issuances to fund larger reservoir and main replacement projects, as well as economic pressures, are anticipated to strain cash reserves towards the end of the plan. And as a result, the plan models days cash and debt service coverage becoming strained as indicated by the yellow shading. We are modeling a 10-year compounded rate trajectory of 44%, with larger rate increases in the first 3 years of the plan. Rate increases have been smoothed wherever possible, and these gradual rate increases will better position the utility to meet near-term bumps in debt service. Water rates are expected to remain comparatively low among regional utilities, even with significant capital improvement investments. The overall rate trajectory improved since July's presentation. Refinement of operational assumptions, as well as capital and operating performance through the summer, improved reserve projections benefiting future years in the long-term financial plan. All right, moving on to the 2026 budget, the water utility draft budget is $8 million more than 2025. The capital budget increase is needed for tank and pipeline construction of College Hill Reservoir. The watershed recovery work winds down as the fee sunsets mid-year next year. And O&M budget is lower due to refining assumptions and shared services allocation. The overall revenue requirement for the 2026 water draft budget is 6% and is necessary to ease pressure targets in the near term that are a result of substantial amount of conventional borrowing to fund larger reservoir and transmission main projects. I want to note again that this rate increase does not include funding for the second drinking water source. The board will discuss funding for this project later this month. The bar graph shows EWEB's water rates position among comparators, and EWEB's average monthly residential bill presented here includes the watershed recovery fee, which sunsets mid-year next year. The final results will be presented in November, but preliminary cost of service analysis results show an average $3 monthly increase for customers. And with this increase, EWEB's position would remain comparatively low among regional utilities.
The draft 2026 budgets total $492 million for both the electric and water utilities combined. The $23 million year-over-year increase for capital investments includes funding for key strategic priorities. Lower forecasted power prices are a primary contributor to the decrease in operations and maintenance costs, while debt service remains relatively flat year-over-year. Both utilities will be issuing debt in 2026. The electric utility will be issuing approximately 110 million, and the water utility will be issuing approximately 60 million for a combined estimated total of 170 million of new debt issuances next year. Utility affordability is a key priority for our community. The top graph presents the combined average water and electric bills for residential customers of some of our comparator utilities, as well as the median income and annual average utility bills of those service areas. The annualized average is then compared as a percentage of median household income, which is represented by the green dots. The state of Oregon defines affordable as less than 6% on utility bills. However, EWEB recognizes that some customers pay a significantly higher percentage. To help financially vulnerable customers, EWEB has maintained programs that provide both immediate relief and long-term solutions to reduce utility bills. Historical funding and commitment for the customer care program is shown in the bar chart at the bottom. The MHI indicator is represented by the green line as the affordability measured each year and has had a slight downward trend over the past 10 years as a function of EWEB bills growing at a slower pace than median household income. 2026, 2.1 million has been allocated for customer care funding, an increase of 500,000 over 2025 to mitigate the funding uncertainty of the low-income home energy assistance program. This evening, after the public hearing, we will answer any questions and look for board direction on the 2026 draft budgets and prices. Next month, we will return with a more detailed draft budget document along with proposed pricing changes and hold the first of 2 public hearings on proposed prices. The second public hearing on prices will be in December, at which point we will ask the board to adopt the pricing proposals and approve final 2026 budget documents.
Okay, do you want to do questions before the public hearing?
Let's open the public hearing first, and then we'll be back for questions if that works.
All right, I will open the public hearing on the draft budgets. Is there anybody signed up? I will close the public hearing on the draft budgets. Okay, I'll open it up to the commission for questions or comments. Mindy.
If we transfer the upriver service territory, will that affect our budget at all?
So I'll go ahead and I'll take that. We're still working through a final valuation on those assets. There will be a loss of revenue associated with that. We would anticipate that we'll be transferring some of our BPA Tier 1 allotment, but we'll also have a lowering of expenses and potentially future risk and other expenses in the future. So all of that is coming together, but it is not represented here because we do not have those final numbers.
TBD.
TBD.
Okay, thanks. That's it for now.
John?
2 questions. Where do you get your numbers for a medium household income between Eugene and Springfield? Because I know that Springfield just did a study on how they're going to deal with their budget deficit, and Eugene's going through the process now, and I think they have different numbers than I saw up there. So I just wondering what's the source of your medium household income? Because those numbers they're using shows Eugene's medium household income is less than Springfield's, and these show a different number.
We get those numbers from census.gov.
Okay. The other one is what happens if we throw 160 million bucks of debt service on the water rates? Rough. I mean, because it's not there. I just trying to think about that.
I don't know where we're at in the draft on that. We are working on those numbers.
Well,
And
for every $1 million
it's
of debt, is
not
how much of a rate increase for water?
Every $10 million of debt is equivalent to 1.6% rate increase.
Every 10 million. So the 60 million we're adding in debt now is that you're adding next year is for something outside of second source.
Correct.
Okay, so every 10 million is 1.6.
for the water utility,
Okay,
yes.
so if I took 16 times 1.6, I would have what that rate impact would be. What
Well,
time?
6% was $3.
Hmm?
6% was $3 increase.
I believe that the backgrounder that you will receive later this month will include rate trajectory and
Okay.
bill impact.
Thank you.
So I do want to clarify that, that the amount to cover debt service does not necessarily give us the debt service coverage. It may be enough to pay the bill, but we also need to keep an eye on our debt service coverage. So we will have those numbers October 21st.
What's the minimum DCR for our bond rating?
So the board has set a target of 2%, and with all the other, or 2.0, with all of the other financial metrics and our performance, that's been sufficient to maintain our rating.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I've got a couple questions. If you go back up to the slide, the electric slide, and the increases. Okay. So we're looking at 3.9 for 26 and then 9.65 for 27, 3.3, 1.7, blah, blah, blah. If we were to bump up 26 to 5% to help levelize 27, that would probably lower that 9% more than the 1.1%. I'm just looking at if we went an extra point up this year, it compounds and it's less of a big bite in 27. We get callback when we have these 9-10% increases. I think we would get less callback if we did 5, and that could probably drop it to maybe 8 or a little bit more than 8 if we did it that way. Just something to think about as far as levelizing some of these rate increases. We've done it with water. I just want to throw that out there as something to think about. I'm very encouraged by the fact that we're putting in more money to the customer care because of the LIHEAP. That was one of my big concerns, was that was going away, and what the heck are our low income people going to do? It sounds like we're stepping up to the plate on that. And I think that that's a story that we really need to tell, because there is all this talk about the cuts from the federal, and the fact that we're stepping up to the plate. We need to blow that trumpet, because it's hard for us to do that. And I think it's the right thing for us to do. And then lastly, this is something that came up in the thing that we got, and it's on page 8 of our board packet on this thing, and it was the key assumptions for the electrical rate. The second bullet says electrification load is approximately 26,000 megawatts in 2026, increasing to 208,000 megawatts in 2035. When I first read that, I thought that was a typo. That's a 900% increase that we're looking at, the amount of electrons that we're putting through our system in less than 10 years. That gives me some real pause, because if we're thinking electrification and all that's going to put that many more electrons through our thing, our aging infrastructure that you called out earlier in the presentation is going to be stressed way beyond what we have. And are we really putting the amount of capital, are we planning for the amount of capital for a 900% increase in the amount of power that we're doing? And I don't need an answer to that today, but that just blew my mind. So I don't know if you want to talk about that, or if anybody can, or if that can come back to us as a memo, but where is that 900% increase in load, one, coming from and being distributed to?
The electrification forecast is based off of electric vehicles
Yes.
adoption. And I will say that we are modeling that we're meeting that load through conservation through 2033. It's only after that that we aren't able to meet that load.
But we're still need to put it through all of our infrastructure.
Correct.
And yeah,
I just want to acknowledge that that is a really fair question. We do have folks who I'm not sure are prepared to speak about that tonight,
right.
but that is something that unless somebody interrupts me and says they want to talk tonight, we'll be sure and bring back further information on that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's all I have for right now. Anybody else? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I want to just thank you for bringing this information forward. You guys are always just the most knowledgeable about this, so deeply appreciate. And I just wanted to acknowledge too of the customer cares. That is something that I'm constantly looking for, and I'm appreciative to see the increase in and the acknowledgement of the federal funds that are coming or that are ending, and that we are stepping up to the plate, as Commissioner Borowski said. And well and truly, it's my day job. I'm hearing from folks who are beginning to lose those funds, lose access to those funds, and having those really intense conversations of what do they do today. And so I think that it is a testament to our community that EWEB is saying you can come to us for that. So thank you for that. I have a lot of thoughts that are not coherent at the moment. So I appreciate this, and I look forward to bringing more thoughts later as you bring more information as well. So thanks.
Do we have a sense of the scale of the LIHEAP dollars that go into our community versus what portion we're able to increase to cover?
I believe on average, historically, we were seeing somewhere around 1.6 million. And so we're reaching 500,000.
Okay, so there's still going to be a very significant gap.
Correct.
Okay, that's what I want to know. I appreciate that we're stepping up. I also know it's still going to mean a lot of hardship in our community. Thanks.
So just to my earlier levelization, if you could bring back next month, if we were to add 1.1% increase in 26, what that would do to 27's increase for next month, if you could bring that back, that would be helpful for me, because that may be a motion that I may put forward. No, to just make so that 27's rate increases is as large. If it looks like it makes sense.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the 2027 does not include 3 major projects as well, including electric and water. Am I correct in that? So the number that we're seeing here is upon approval from this board, that number is the number that will come out is lower. The number on the screen is lower than what could be potentially the future in 2027. Is that?
I think they're proposing a close to a 10% increase in 2027.
Yeah, that's
3% of that is pre-funding for Lieberg, which is the decision that we made a few years back, and 3% compounds to make it up that high.
So as the chart is constructed up there, those top rate increases are unmitigated. The board has given us direction to stay within the bounds of inflation. In order to do that, we would need to trim almost $20 million from the overall electric budget. So without taking any mitigating action, the general rate increase would be 9.65, and then Lieberg pre-funding of 3% is
Okay, so
how that chart.
So we're at 12.65.
With no mitigating action. That
Right.
is a big number, but management is committed to taking that back and looking at what opportunities we have to mitigate that.
And would one of the mitigating things be doing a larger increase in 26?
It could be.
I guess that's the number that
Yes.
I would ask. If we went up 1.1% to a 5% increase in 26, what would that bring that number down to in 27? That's what I was hoping to see. because of the compounding effect that would have. Any other questions or comments? Okay, we are on break till 7:50. Oops. Let's talk it. Let's say 8 o'clock. I was trying.
3 minutes behind.
Upcoming electric and water long-term financial plans update. We just did that, didn't we?
We got that done before the break.
Okay. Annual dam
You want us to do it
safety
again?
update. How many lunches become the dinners? Dam safety.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Lisa Krenz, EWEB's Generation Manager. Joining me at the table tonight is Laura Oman, our Chief Dam Safety Engineer and Dam Safety Program Supervisor. It is our pleasure to provide our annual update of EWEB's Owner's Dam Safety Program tonight, along with a couple of highlights from some specific projects. And with that, I will hand it over to Laura to run through the presentation.
Hey, Commissioners.
Oh, hit the green button. There
This
we
one?
go. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. Today I will provide an update on EWEB's Dam Safety Program. This briefing will cover the Owner's Dam Safety Program, the FERC annual inspections, project updates, the emergency action plan, and program improvements. EWEB's Owner's Dam Safety Program is the framework that ensures that dam safety is a top organizational priority with clear management commitment, defined owner responsibilities, including staff training, effective communication, strong record keeping, and a focus on continuous improvement. We have 5 dedicated team members, and we're fully staffed currently. This includes the Chief Dam Safety Engineer, which is myself, 2 Senior Dam Safety Engineers, Engineering Associate 2, and a Regulatory Compliance Specialist. Staff responsibilities include program leadership, technical analyses, design review, regulatory interface, construction oversight, and compliance and tracking and documentation. In addition, we work closely with other teams within Generation to ensure that dam safety is adequately addressed on all projects. FERC requires that an external audit be completed every 5 years on the ODSP, or Owner's Dam Safety Program. The EWEB first audit was in 2019, and we completed our second audit at the close of 2024. The audit validated substantial progress since 2019 and confirmed that a dam safety culture exists throughout EWEB. This can be observed by the creation of an independent dam safety team, which reports to the Generation Manager, Lisa, as well as the increased awareness of dam safety throughout the organization. This includes dam safety awareness and engagement from the EWEB board. Key audit recommendations require continued focus on documentation, communication channels, and a formal ongoing staff training program. These recommendations are especially critical considering the license and dam safety driven capital projects happening at Carmen Smith, as well as the operational changes being planned at Lieberg with the decommissioning, and the work being done at the Walterville development to design and construct a repair at the forebay. FERC conducts annual inspections of our licensed facilities as part of ongoing regulatory oversight. I'm going to provide a couple of examples of inspection items. The inspection at Lieberg-Walterville project highlighted the significant progress that EWEB has made in vegetation management at both canals. This is an ongoing requirement, which sometimes does require us to reach out to adjacent property owners for support to maintain the toe of the canal free of vegetation and other materials, to provide visual inspections. At the Carmen Smith project, the annual inspection included inspection of the Trail Bridge Emergency Spillway, which is shown on the right. This was follow-up to a previous annual inspection where we cleaned the spillway concrete blocks to allow for a good visual inspection of the concrete block integrity. And on the left is the Smith Conduit Tunnel, where we were asked to clean and remove the biofouling seen at the bottom of the tunnel, excuse me. This task is completed, and we will monitor annually to determine how quickly the biofouling accumulates in a year's time. EWEB's license deployment team is responsible for the design and construction of license required projects. The dam safety team evaluates and monitors dam safety improvements needed for safe operation and provides technical guidance to the license deployment team on license required capital projects. As an update on Trailbridge Dam, as you know, we discovered sinkholes in Trailbridge Reservoir during routine bathymetry survey in 2021. A thorough investigation of the sinkholes has been completed and submitted to FERC. In November of last year, we completed an issue-specific risk analysis, or a QRA, of the potential failure modes associated with the sinkholes. The workshop included FERC, EWEB staff, EWEB consultants, and 3 subject matter experts on internal erosion. The goal of the analysis was to determine the risk associated with the sinkholes and also review risk reduction options and next steps. Outcomes confirmed that due to the geology of the site, as well as EWEB's robust monitoring program that's in place, the risk caused by the sinkholes is very small and can be managed effectively by use of best practices in dam safety monitoring. The dam safety team continues to monitor sinkhole activity and associated remediation at Carmen Smith. The Lieberg Canal continues to be utilized for stormwater conveyance. Therefore, the dam safety team continues to monitor it. The Lieberg decommissioning team is working on near-term risk reduction measures with the consultant team, and that team will be back here in December to provide an update on decommissioning and near-term risk reduction measures. The Walterville forebay has area of known seepage, which the dam safety team and operations staff have been closely monitoring for a long time, using real-time monitoring and alarming. In February of 2024, a seepage weir experienced a dramatic increase in seepage. The alarm system notified operations staff of this increase, and the canal was dewatered and has remained so while we have investigated a repair solution. The repair goal is to decrease seepage and allow us to continue to operate the project through the license term, which is the year 2040. The forebay canal liner repair is currently in the design phase. We have a dam safety workshop scheduled in October to engage FERC and internal stakeholders on a review of potential failure modes for the canal liner project. There are a couple of low probability potential failure modes for the Walterville Canal related to seismic and the probable maximum flood, or PMF, that do need to be addressed in the long term, but it remains unclear if FERC will require them to be addressed in the near term. We continue to work with our consultants to better understand and characterize the risks in order to have more informed discussions on the urgency of addressing the seismic and PMF risks. And want to point out, please note that if the project scope does expand beyond what is currently defined and authorized, we will evaluate the financial implications and return to the board for review as appropriate. The contract is structured in phases, and only the design phase has been authorized at this time. The procurement and construction phases will not be authorized until there's clear confidence in the selected path forward. Some schedule highlights. Again, the dam safety workshop is in October of 2025. We're targeting end of Q1 2026 for design submittal to FERC. And construction start is planned for Q3 of 2026. EWEB has an emergency action plan which details procedures for the case of a dam safety emergency. We update this annually, and we review with our local emergency managers such as city, county, and upriver fire departments. In 2024, we completed a simulation exercise called a functional exercise. These are required every 5 years. And this year, our annual review of the EAP with external partners is scheduled for this month. This event is essential for collaboration, updating contact information, and increasing knowledge of the hydro projects.
In recent years, the dam safety program has faced increased regulatory complexity, heavy workloads, limited resources, schedule pressures with license and review timelines, and aging infrastructure that raises the likelihood of additional repairs. Despite these pressures, the program has made measurable progress. Strengthened procedures, increased staffing, dam safety expertise through consultant support, and fostering a robust dam safety culture. These accomplishments have been made possible through the board's dedicated support. So we want to take this opportunity to thank the board for your continued engagement, your continued support of the dam safety program. Your willingness to consider the necessary investments, prioritize dam safety in strategic decisions, and advocate for the program has been instrumental to our progress. Again, thank you for your engagement and support. That concludes my presentation, and we are happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you for the presentation. I'll open up for questions. Done.
Can you remind me, we have like 2.6 million budgeted for Walterville for the 4-bay construction. I mean, you say construction is going to start in Q3 26.
Correct. The contract was for 3 million. We have spent to date 172,000 or so. And again, that's in phases, but the intent of that contract was both design, procurement, and construction of the repair.
What about this 1 in a million and 1 in 10,000 requirement? Where does that stand in the conversation?
So I will just say a couple high level things about that, and then I'll pass it to Laura. And we do also have Mark Zineker online as well to answer questions. So that's one of the uncertainties that we have. That's that kind of parallel path that Laura talked about, where right now we're in the design phase working on the 4-bay liner repair. But in addition to that, we have both the seismic hazard and also the probable maximum flood requirements from FERC that are unclear at this point, what will be required between now and the end of this license term. And so we have parallel analyses happening so that we can actually take some information to FERC and get confirmation from them around what will be required. And I'd ask Laura to add or change anything from that.
No, that's accurate.
Could you just clarify me? You said in this license term, that's 2040?
License
So
expires in
they're gonna-
2040.
They're going
yeah.
to keep this gun pointed at us for another 20 years?
I'm sorry, say that again.
And the analogy, I mean, they're going to keep this uncertainty about our cost of bringing into compliance until 2040 about the 1 in 10,000, 1 in.
I see what you're saying. So yeah, we have multiple things going on. We have our current license that expires in 2040. Our intent is to implement a repair of the 4-bay that will take us to that license expiration date of 2040. Then simultaneously with respect to Lieber decommissioning, we're going to be embarking on a strategic evaluation of the Walterville project that will allow us to determine what we want to do at Walterville come the end of this license term in 2040. Various options, including decommissioning or relicensing. If we were to move towards a relicensing scenario, and so this will be included in the strategic evaluation, we would assume seismic upgrades are needed and upgrades to align with the probable maximum flood. And so that will be a consideration in our decision to ultimately either relicense or do something else with the project. Our hope is that we can get through the next 15 years without making those sizable improvements that we would not ever receive a return on investment in 15 years for that.
Other questions, comments? So I had a couple. That was one of them, the seismic and PMF. So it sounds like if we fix the 4-bay, chances are they're not going to make us jump through the hoop before 2040 for PMF or the seismic. We're hoping that that's probably.
They're sort of separate but similar things. So the 4-bay repair is one thing.
Right.
It's kind of like, I don't know, is this an appropriate analogy, Laura? When you go to remodel your house, then you need to bring it up to code.
Right.
That's essentially the thing that that we need to get more clarity from FERC around. Because the seismic issues and the probable maximum flood aren't necessarily localized to the 4-bay, right?
So I guess the question then would be, would we have that certainty or let's say a 70% certainty that we don't have to hit those before we invested in fixing the 4-bay?
Yeah, that's our plan, is to conduct these things in parallel so that we have certainty before we pull the plug on the next phase or ultimately to construction. At some point, we have to procure the liner in order to be able to meet some schedule.
Yep.
But we want to know for certain what we're going to be required to meet in terms of seismic or PMF before we implement the next phases of the project. And so that's when Laura was saying, if the scope significantly changes, we'll go back and look at our business case again around whether the repair makes sense in the near term.
Right. Okay. And this would probably be a question for Frank, but he won't be. When do you think we will start to look at the question of relicensing Walterville?
Well, you'll hear more about that in December when our Lieberg and our decommissioning team comes back to give an update to the board. We are going to be starting that Walterville strategic evaluation. Can't remember off the top of my head when we were going to have it done. I think it was the end of next year. We had some inputs that were needed, which is why we haven't started it to date, including information on seismic vulnerability and other things so that we could include those in the analysis.
Okay. Next question, and this isn't really dam safety, but I've got my dam people here, so I'll ask them. How long until Smith River Reservoir is open for angling, the campground, and getting in there?
How long till it opens again?
Yes.
Oh, goodness. Next year, next summer. Mark's online.
It's next summer.
Okay,
Yep.
good.
Next summer?
Yep, 26.
Like opening, trout season opening? Is that what we're gonna shoot for?
I believe so. I think, I don't know when that is.
That's usually
exactly, but
April.
April, that's, yep.
Because they've been growing in there for what, 7 years? 8 years?
Some big ones.
Without anybody.
We'll sample it.
Okay. Yeah, that's my questions. Thanks for the update. I appreciate it. It's a very important thing that we have to deal with, that our new general manager, another general manager is gonna have to deal with dam safety as well as things. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Okay, thank you for the presentation. Future board agendas. I've got something that I just would like to throw out there. I don't know if everybody in this room is aware, but there is a ballot initiative that has been approved to go to the ballot. It's called the Watershed Bill of Rights, which basically gives watersheds the rights of people. It would have an absolutely devastating impact on a lot of the work that we do. It would allow for people to litigate against anybody that does any type of impact to any watershed. I think we need to have Jason look into that and bring us back a report or a memo on the impacts that may have on us and how we may want to weigh in on that, because that's going to be coming up. I think I don't know if it's probably be in the May election. You think it'll be I don't know if it'll be November. Wouldn't be this November. I think it's going to be in the May, but it's qualified for the ballot. It's gotten enough signatures. It's a Lane County initiative. It's not a state initiative. It's a Lane County initiative. And it's very, I'll just say it. It has implications that could affect us directly as our thing. So I think we need to flag that and bring it in as, I don't know if it needs to be an agenda item, but it definitely needs to be something that we can have at least a memo on. Other comments or questions as far as future board agendas?
I'd just like to speak to what I think that's important enough to make it a agenda item, because that will affect any of our watershed restoration or like Quartz Creek and things like that. If somebody doesn't like what we're doing, they can sue us. And, you know, the last thing we need to be is restricted on our watershed enhancement efforts and things like that. It was, to me, I think I'd like to personally get a lot more information on it and find out what's gonna happen. Whether or not we should take a position. So you're looking for a head nod, you got mine.
All right. Anybody else on agendas? All right. Board wrap up. We will go around the room. Tim. Indy. Sonia. Don. Thank you. Thank you, Deborah, for sitting in and taking the heat from all of us. Appreciate it. Do we have we don't have another work, there was a tentative work session for later this month. Is that? There is a work session on the 21st? Okay, so then we will see you at that. With that, we are adjourned.